Coming up on We Talk News this week, it's deja vu all over again in the U.S. Senate as Senators Schumer, Wyden, and Booker are ready to try again to decriminalize cannabis at the federal level.
The Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act would help put an end to the unfair targeting and treatment of communities of color by removing cannabis from the federal list of controlled substances.
You might remember this scene in July of 22 when the same three senior senators introduced the CAOA and it went nowhere. Is this time different? And Federal Custom and Border Patrol forces have busted a series of legal cannabis transports in New Mexico. This was being transported inside a legal state's market, and they detain drivers, confiscate the legally licensed weed on its way to manufacturers and distributors in that state. Now, the operators want their weed or compensation for their product loss. Plus, once again, New Hampshire makes progress on an adult use bill only to have their governor, Chris Sununu, send it back, demanding more state-run stores and distribution services. Now, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin is trying to make amends for vetoing his legislature's bill for legalization 2 weeks ago. He's now supporting state workers who are first responders and are users of legal medicinal cannabis. And this is the week of 420, the unofficial cannabis holiday celebration, and this year it falls on a Saturday. All that and coast-to-coast cannabis news reports on We Talk News with Alaina Pinto. Next.
We are pro-cannabis media.
Hi, everyone, and happy 420 week. This is We Talk News, pro-cannabis media's weekly production of this week's cannabis news. I'm Alaina Pinto. It's been a quiet few weeks in Washington, D.C. In fact, the only movement on federal reform has been a response from political prohibitionists and attorney generals who are pressuring the DEA to keep cannabis at Schedule 1. Well, now the FDA is getting involved. The head of the Food and Drug Administration, Robert Califf, is urging the DEA to stop stalling and move the plant medicine to Schedule 3. Well, this past summer, that was the suggestion of the Health and Human Services Department. But the head of the FDA, Robert Califf, told the House Oversight Committee this past week that there is, quote, no reason for the DEA to delay, unquote, making its decision on cannabis rescheduling. So for the latest on these developments, here's Andrew Behringer.
I am Andrew Behringer, and this is the DC area report for We Talk News. Now, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and a few other senators are making a final push for federal cannabis legalization, attempting to gain support for their bill, the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, or better known as CAOA, ahead of a planned reintroduction by April's end. Now, this legislation aims to remove cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act and establish regulations similar to the alcohol and the tobacco industries. The main provisions of this bill focus on product safety standards, curbing youth access, providing resources to states and localities, as well as a few other items. It also seeks to open up cannabis research, which is currently hindered by federal prohibition and laws. This latest version contains few changes from its 2022 iteration, but faces an uphill battle in a divided Congress. Now, with only a razor-thin Democratic Senate majority and a Republican-controlled House under Speaker Mike Johnson's anti-cannabis leadership, this bill's prospects appear bleak at best. As such, reformers are putting more emphasis and focus on passing the Safe Banking Act that cleared Senate last fall, as well as the House a couple other times. Chuck Schumer has reportedly voiced intent to get cannabis banking across the finish line amid some signs of growing GOP support. Still, the Senate is making one final push for their comprehensive reform package, setting an April 19th deadline for an original bill co-sponsors just ahead of the 420 cannabis holiday. Whether it's mere symbolism or groundwork for future effort remains to be seen. But don't worry, I'm Andrew Behringer reporting for We Talk News. Tune in next week.
The conflicting laws between the feds and legal states have taken another confusing turn. In New Mexico, over the past few weeks, federal agents from the Customs and Border Patrol have stopped and confiscated pounds of legal cannabis on its way to other legal licensed distributors. They detain the drivers, confiscate their cargo, and after a few hours, the drivers are released without any charges. The legal licensees want to know, though, where their confiscated legal crop is, or demand market value compensation. Well, there are more busts happening in California, but the feds are not involved with that state's market yet. Here's our California correspondent, Levana Vassau.
I'm Levana Vassau from the Bay Sesh, reporting for PCM with this week's California report for Weed Talk News. A California con artist with prior fraud convictions dating back to the 90s, Mark Roy Anderson, age 69, was found guilty on April 5th for fraud again, this time scamming investors to the tune of $18.4 million. According to People magazine, Anderson pleaded guilty to 2 wire fraud charges. From June 2020 to May 2023, Anderson ran multiple scams on investors using sham companies. The names of the sham hemp businesses were Harvest Farm Group, Biopharma, and Verta Bottling. He created a pretend farm in Kern County that grew hemp and other operations that manufactured hemp infused with retail products and claimed to have a bottling plant in order to get investors to give him their money. According to High Times, Anderson started this scam immediately after being released from federal prison on previous fraud charges, while still serving out a sentence on the outs. And as promised, law enforcement is making big moves in 2024. I've been discussing the Governor's United Enforcement Task Force, or UCETF, for the past 6 months or more. The task force has had its first fiscal year in 2023 and promised to increase enforcement in 2024. They just released their first quarter numbers. Since January, the task force seized 31,866 pounds of unlicensed cannabis, $34,858,000 in cash, and 11 firearms, which law enforcement claims the total value of over $53 million. Finally, 420 is quickly approaching this weekend, and there's tons of celebrations across the state and country. I don't have time to go over them now, but I will be making announcements on my Instagram and YouTube channels at the Bay Sesh. I'm Levana Vassau with the Bay Sesh, reporting for PCM, and that was this week's California report for Weed Talk News.
Massachusetts isn't the only state bringing suit against the federal government. Now, Rhode Island is getting into the act. A medical marijuana company called MMJ Biopharma Cultivation is suing the Department of Justice and the DEA, saying their rights have been victimized by an unconstitutional proceeding led by an unconstitutional decision maker. The firm's application to manufacture cannabis for research purposes is being stonewalled by both federal organizations. Well, now let's check in on what is going on in Missouri with Brandon Jones.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. And a couple cool things that are happening. First of all, courts. What are we going to do? So Mocan Trade, or Mocan Do, one company, was actually denied their application all the way back in 2019. They appealed their decision. They were actually decided they could get back their license. And then they just were told Tuesday, actually, we're just kidding, we're taking it back again. So I don't know how this court system works. I don't know how the application works, but this company, literally, Mocan Do, was denied, appealed, given, and denied again. So I don't know how this court system is working. Nobody in Missouri really does. This has been one that's been under, appeal for 3 years. So who knows what's going to happen? But it's not stopping our Missouri residents from going out to the dispensaries and purchasing cannabis. Last month, we broke all the sales record for Missouri in the history of recreational sales. $108.7 million were sold in the state of Missouri. That beat last month 98.3. So almost a little over $20.4 million difference. And it is the largest. And that's right before April. And we all know it's 420, ton of events going on. So get out here, recreational cannabis in Missouri. Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution, the Missouri Cannabis Report for Weed Talks News. Stay medicated and educated. Have a great week.
Well, check out this image from Attleboro, Massachusetts, where an SUV crashed through the doors at Sahara, an adult use dispensary there. There were 3 people hurt, including the driver, but none have life-threatening injuries. And that's just one of the stories this week in the Bay State Cannabis Report. Here's PCM founder Jimmy Young.
I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young, and this is the Bay State Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. So you've seen the damage caused to the Sahara dispensary in Attleboro when a 61-year-old driver decided to drive into the dispensary. That's drive into, not drive through. The driver was injured in this crash, as were 2 other adults, one who was outside the store, one who was inside the store. Now, all were hospitalized with non-threatening injuries, and Attleboro police are continuing to investigate the crash. Sahara is still planning on their big second annual Smoked Out 420 Fest at that location over next weekend. Now, it's been a long waiting game for social equity licensees to get a payout from the Cannabis Social Equity Trust Fund that was established 2 years ago and still had not shared any of the state money with applicants. Well, now that is about to change. According to Chris Ferrone's Talking Joints memo, some 50,000 grantees have been contacted by the state that they will be seeing a grant very soon. Now, it's been 2 years since that fund was established, but it took a long time to release them to the businesses that need them the most. These funds are designed to offset some of the operational fees, taxes, overdue bills, and other costs that these dispensaries are responsible for due to a stiff set of regulations and rules. Now, some of the companies that have been informed that they will be getting grant money are Green Flash Delivery, Rolling Relief, and Bada Bloom Cannabis. Last week, we made a mistake in reporting of a lawsuit involving Rev Clinics, the distributor of David Ortiz's line of cannabis, and the others. Now, Rev Clinics issued a statement this week that says the lawsuit referenced in the Worcester Business Journal article relates to one of their small medical dispensaries in Cambridge. The dispute is with their landlord at that location and does not impact their Fitchburg production facility or wholesale operation. There should be no interruption with operations. Well, that will do it for the Bay State Cannabis Report for this week. I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young.
In New Hampshire, the House passed another legalization bill, but before it moves on to the Senate, Governor Chris Sununu sent it back to the House to make changes that would solidify his vision of state-run lab stores and distribution centers. At least he has been consistent in his vision of an adult use market in his state from the beginning. It's not so in Virginia. You might remember that 2 weeks ago, Governor Glenn Youngkin dashed the hopes of cannabis supporters in his state when he vetoed an adult use legalization bill handed to him by his legislature. Well, this week he is trying to make up for it by supporting the rights of state employees who are qualified medical marijuana patients. Our man with the Cannabis connection in Virginia is Joe Parsons. Here he is.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection, and this is the Virginia Cannabis Report on Weed Talk News. Happy 420 week, everyone. Well, 421 is just a few short days away, and as everyone already knows, I'm going to be representing pro-cannabis media at the 3rd annual Virginia 420 Festival. It all begins on April 18th at the beautiful Misty Mountain Resort in Greenwood, Virginia, and Garrett Farms in Salem, Virginia. There's a lot going to be going on this year at both locations, including classes for cultivation, yoga and relaxation sessions, political speakers, industry ambassadors, and of course, plenty of great bands from the local and national scene, including headlining at Garrett Farms, the Cottonmouth Kings, and headlining for Misty Mountain is Keller Williams. Follow my blog channel, Virginia Cannabis Connection, and subscribe for streaming events at the show. Streams will also be available on Facebook at the Virginia Cannabis Connection Facebook page. Now, if music isn't your only thing, we got you covered there too. April 18th is the 420 Unity Day of Action in Washington, D.C. It's the largest ever bipartisan coalition ever assembled in D.C. and is a chance to get your voices heard loud and clear. Information and sign up is at lastprisonerproject.org. Another awesome event going on for the upcoming holiday is the National 420 Festival, also in D.C. Now, that's going to be held at the RFK Stadium on April 19th and 20th. There will be some awesome performances by the Wu-Tang Clan and Redman, 2 of cannabis' most classics. One of the highlights of the festival is Virginia's very own Chelsea Higgs Wise of the Richmond-based civil rights group Marijuana Justice. She will be the keynote speaker for No Statehood, No Legal Marijuana Market on April 19th, and she'll be joining the DPA for What to Expect and Demand from the Biden administration and Congress this year on April 20th. We in Virginia are very proud of Chelsea and all that she's done and continues to do for all of us in Virginia. So, as you can see, there's lots of choices for the Commonwealth on this 420. Virginia Cannabis Connection and Pro Cannabis Media would like to remind everyone out there to have a safe and responsible holiday weekend. Get a designated driver, know your limits, and remember, always pass to the left. Well, that's all for this week's Virginia Cannabis Report. Happy 420, everyone. Reporting from the Virginia Cannabis Connection and Pro Cannabis Media's Weed Talk News, I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, definitely stay lifted.
And what we want to do is we want to help birth some new entrepreneurs, because you need capital to be able to do that. You know, we feel like the social equity licenses are a first start, but if you don't give that person cash or credit or money, it's like giving someone a Ferrari with no gas in it. You can't get any place.
Northern Maine is called Down East in New England's northernmost state, and it is also where many illegal foreign operations have set up illegal shops and distribution centers. This week, another was broken in Penobscot County, and while no arrests were made, the sheriff's office there claims that this was another operation funded by Chinese nationals. So far, those operations have not set up in New Jersey, but that state is always expanding their existing operations, as now they have passed over 100 legal stores open for adult use in that state that is projecting over $1 billion in sales this year. Jill Goldsberry has more from the Garden State.
Jill Goldsberry here with the Garden State Cannabis Report, and I am back here with the latest news out of New Jersey and the surrounding areas. And if you've got something you want to share on the Garden State Cannabis Report, feel free to contact me on @SmokeSesh at SmokeSesh212 on Instagram, and I will try to get it on here. Fresh and back from MJ Unpacked, where New Jersey's finest in cannabis were on hand, and I've got some things to share with you, what's new and what's fresh. Coming up this week, the Butter Cake PB&J Brownie. It is absolutely delicious, pre-launched at the MJ Unpacked, and will be available officially at retail on April 16th. What stores, what dispensaries? Go to their Instagram at Buttercake on Instagram, and you will find out what stores you will be able to purchase just in time for 420. And another cool thing I saw at MJ Unpacked was by a company called Artrex. They make the company, they make really cool vape devices. Well, they have launched DabGo. DabGo is the first ever disposable dab pen hitting the market. This allows the consumer to monitor, concentrate in real time. And that is something we haven't seen before. It's small enough and discreet enough to actually put in your pocket. Check it out on their website for more information. And I don't know when it will actually be hitting the market, but you can also hit them up for that information as well. Another thing I did notice at MJ Unpacked was a lot of ancillary businesses available. So if you are really looking to open a dispensary, you can find everything you need there. I'm talking payroll, legal, inventory software, things that you're really going to need for your business. And moving right along into other news, there's been a significant expansion recently in our market with landmark moves in the industry from New York to New Jersey, granting 137 new cannabis licenses, 36 in New Jersey, 36 new weed licenses for operation have been given out. Also, New York has a 30% 30% expansion in their market with 101 new cannabis licenses granted very recently. And with 420 right around the corner, many of you already have your plans set up. You know what you're doing. You've got days before that set up. So what are you going to do on 421? That's going to be a recovery day, right? So let me tell you about something. 421, here's an event to check out. The Weed and Wellness Recovery and Fitness Activations event at the THC New York Museum space will be on hand by founder Saint of Weed and Wellness. He's banded together some of the top fitness trainers in the city, in surrounding areas, to put together a range of a full day of cannabis and wellness activities ranging from dance, yoga, to the cold plunge, which I won't be doing, but you're more than welcome to do that. And you can find out where you can get tickets at the weedandwellness.com site. And hopefully we'll see you there. That's it for the Garden State Cannabis Report. I'm Jill Goldsberry. See you next time.
At the top of the show, we mentioned that this is the week of 420, when April 20th is the unofficial holiday for the cannabis industry, right? Well, it will also be the day when there is probably going to be a showdown of law enforcement and the Cherokee Nation. That Eastern Band of Cherokee Nation has the right to sell and distribute medical marijuana on its sovereign land. However, that is still illegal in North Carolina, a state with some of the strictest cannabis laws in the country. The district attorney in that county is planning on enforcing state law. Ashley Hornsby Welch has said that while she respects the EBCI's tribal rights, she plans on enforcing North Carolina state law, which prohibits the possession, distribution, and cultivation of cannabis. We will be keeping an eye on the inevitable showdown on April 20th in North Carolina. It's just another example of why the federal government needs reform or to decriminalize it and allow the states to adapt to the emerging legal operations. Well, Arizona continues to watch their cannabis industry grow, and while that state has been focused on another societal issue this week, there is still plenty going on there. And Karen Black has our Arizona report.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. 5 cannabis-related bills are still active in the Arizona legislature, and 2 underwent significant changes over the past couple weeks. 1 was broadened to include changes to state hemp rules to align with federal regulations, establish THC limits, and create a licensing system. Another got an 11-page amendment, all to do with whether the Department of Child Safety will investigate mothers' medical marijuana histories or merely verify their medical cards. We'll let you know how everything shakes out. National Cannabis Day celebrations seem to have expanded past 420 here in Arizona. For example, MSO Curaleaf is giving away 3,000 reward points to customers here and elsewhere between April 8th and April 30th. Story Cannabis, which has 10 Arizona locations, is hosting a Reefer Roadshow drive-in movie event on April 18th in Chandler and a 420 hangover event the 21st in Phoenix. Mint Cannabis is throwing a 2-day Rasa-themed party at its 6 dispensaries April 19th and 20th. The Mojave-based MSO also plans to bestow Scottsdale Community College with funds for 4 higher education cannabis scholarships of $420 each. The Buds of Palooza Bash is back for its 3rd year and Bud Fest for its 2nd, both to be held April 19th in Phoenix, and Smiley Green's annual 420 Fest is slated for Sunday the 21st in Tucson. That's all for this week's Arizona Cannabis Report. I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting reporting for Weed Talk News.
Out west in Washington state, there is always something going on, and Matthew Friedlander keeps an eye on that for us. And even though a Cannabis Freedom March has been canceled, there is some other news that his Cannabis Alliance is involved with. And so here is his report for the week.
Hi, I'm Matthew Friedlander, coming to you from the owner's office here at Skagit Organics with the Washington State Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. So the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board currently has several sections of rules open, 5 or 6, I believe. Most importantly, they're going through definitions and rulemaking for the THC bill that passed this year. This bill will require any product with any detectable amounts of THC to be sold through the I-502 system. So this will affect any hemp product being sold in Washington that is under that 0.3% threshold for THC, but still shows detectable amounts of THC. These products will now have to be rolled into the legal recreational cannabis market. Obviously, huge implications for the hemp industry here in Washington. Rulemaking is open on the entire Department of Health medical cannabis section. So we've been working real closely with the government agencies involved there to help craft these rules and help implement the excise tax removal bill that will be taking effect June 6th. This bill will remove the 37% excise tax off of Department of Health compliant products for registered patients. So those are the big things happening on the industry side. Sales seem to be down a little bit here in Washington. I think that's a trend that is popping up in other states as well this year. Robberies at the retail stores continue to be a problem. Forbidden cannabis here in Seattle just got hit again. American Mary was hit the day after they reopened from their previous robbery. And I believe that store now, the building has structural damage. So they've got a whole another set of issues to have to deal with to try to get reopened. On the event side, the Washington chapter of the Cannabis Freedom March on May 4th has been canceled. The Washington Sun Craft Growers will be holding their Craft Cup on April 21st. And the Cannabis Alliance will have their 9th annual Cannabis Summit on May 10th down in Seattle. So keep an eye out for those events. That's what I've got for you this week out of Washington. My name is Matthew. I'm reporting for Weed Talk News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weedgets filtration system. What? The Weedgets.com, Weedgets, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weedgets.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind.
The next ballot initiative for cannabis that will demand our attention over the next 5 months will be in the state of Florida. We now know who the other multi-state operators who have joined Trulieve in their support of supporting the adult use ballot initiative. And here are some things you might not know. The medical market in that state is the largest in the country, with over 800,000 patients and $2 billion in sales. Well, now joining Trulieve's financial support of $40 million is Air Wellness, Cresco Labs, Curaleaf, Green Thumb Industries, INSA, and Verano, totaling $55 million. To give some perspective on the industry efforts supporting smart and safe Florida, in California, when the adult use question was on the ballot in 2016, it was a $25 million of support. Well, in Ohio, it was just $7 million. Both measures passed, of course, but the Florida market will have to fight against the very powerful political machine led by their governor, Ron DeSantis. In Ohio, the opening of the adult use market might be happening sooner than expected. Attorney Harry Bernstein is our Ohio correspondent, and he brings us up to date on this.
This is Harry Bernstein with the Verde Compliance Partners and the Ohio Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. With adult use cannabis now legalized in Ohio, the state is striving to grant its residents newfound independence and freedom by launching recreational sales as early as July 4th of this year. State officials have expressed optimism that the first adult use sales could begin by our nation's Independence Day, while regulators work to finalize the program's implementation. However, the path to cannabis independence is not without its challenges. Governor Mike DeWine is pushing lawmakers to enact strict new rules, such as limiting home grow, increasing taxes, and banning the sale of unregulated hemp-derived products. And the state legislature is still debating over key regulatory details that could impact both cannabis businesses and consumers. Despite these obstacles, industry experts remain cautiously optimistic about Ohio's future in the legal cannabis space. With a large population and an established medical cannabis program already in place, the state is poised for significant growth once the adult use market opens up. Businesses looking to capitalize on this opportunity will need to stay up to date on the latest policy changes and prepare to navigate the new licensing and compliance requirements. And for Ohio residents, the long-awaited day of cannabis freedom may soon arrive, just in time for our nation's celebration. That's the Ohio Cannabis Report for this week. I'm Harry Bernstein with Verde Compliance Partners, reporting for Weed Talk News.
With the news of an escalation of the hostilities in the Middle East, the Dow Jones stock market closed down by 475 points, or 1.2% of its total market value. So what impact did that have on cannabis stocks? Well, we know our man who is high on Wall Street, Doug Miller, and he will have a review heading into the new week. So here's Doug.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's cannabis stock report for Weed Talk News. Friday's market saw a downturn marked by concerns over inflation and escalating tensions in the Middle East. How will this impact cannabis stocks? I prefer to gauge what sectors will do by examining the ETFs. So let's look at the ETFs. MSOS Advisor Shares Pure U.S. Cannabis ETF is trading around $8.92, and it is dipping. MJ Amplify Alternative Harvest ETF is trading around $3.81, and it is dipping. Weed, WEED, Round Hill Cannabis ETF is trading around $37.95, and it's dipping. YOLO, YOLO, Advisor Shares Pure Cannabis ETF is trading around $3.79, and it is dipping. And Toke, TOKE, Cambria Cannabis ETF is trading around $6.04, and it's dipping. I noticed a striking similarity among all of these charts. They're all experiencing a dip due to the concerns over inflation and tensions in the Middle East, but they're also positioning for potential positivity in the coming months. It wouldn't be unexpected if we witness some form of federal legalization, especially as we near an election. This shift isn't driven solely by a sense of moral obligation, but rather political necessity. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Weed Talk News, I'm Doug Miller.
In New York, the fallout from last week's legal opinion from Judge Frank Bryant continues. You might remember the judge sided with the legal licensees that the marketing regulations are absurd and that some of the decisions made by the Office of Cannabis Management are ridiculous. Christopher Smith is our New York correspondent, and he always has some observations from the licensee point. Here's his New York report.
This is Christopher Smith bringing you the New York report for Weed Talk News. A couple days have gone by since we've gotten back from the MJ Unpacked trade show down in Atlantic City this year at the Hard Rock Hotel. One thing that I noticed about the New Jersey dispensary owners, they are so frickin' normal. What a nice bunch of folks down there. Second thing that was really fantastic about the show, in addition to the parties that Jenny's helped sponsor, for example, was how much love and support Jenny got from people in the industry from around the country, from all the legal states that came to visit the show. People gave so much support to Jenny. They heard what she's going through. They've been following her in the news, and they're really considering her a leader in the industry. And it was just fantastic to see how much support that Jenny got. So that was wonderful. New York, you know, we have a two-tier system. Now, in New York, what that means is we have two tiers of regulation. We have the Cannabis Control Board and we have the Office of Cannabis Management. And all the people in those offices seem to be needing extra chiropractic work this week after patting themselves on the back for granting lots of licenses this week. Now, mind you, that doesn't mean that businesses are open. It just means they've granted pieces of paper and hoping that those folks are able to survive long enough to actually get open. The governor is working through the budget. It's about 2 weeks late so far, and a couple of things that she's trying to pass have to do with the cannabis industry. One is that she is trying to get extra grants and loans passed for the farmers that have been creamed in the hemp market several years ago and then absolutely brutalized in cannabis. They're losing their farms. They're losing their family savings. People are losing their family savings in trying to open up dispensaries here in New York. It's an absolute bloodbath as far as I can tell. And the governor really needs to come through with this budget. Recently, we've heard that she is not getting the budget. She's not getting the support to get the farmers' money. So that is a huge disaster in my book. And we'll see what happens with another big issue that has to do with cannabis, which is the potency tax. Now, most markets don't really ever deal with the potency tax. They don't know what I'm talking about. So let me give you an example of how bad the potency tax is. The potency tax is charged on the potency of the THC in a product, and it's charged to the processor in the middle of the supply chain. So if I make a 1 gram vape, I have to pay $8 in potency tax. That means I have to charge the retailer $16 because I have to keystone it. The retailer has to turn around and double that again and charge the consumer $32. Illegal shops, and there are thousands of illegal shops in New York right now, do not have to pay the potency tax, and so their consumers are getting their products for $32 off. Just as a small example. So the potency tax is a total disaster, and the governor needs to get rid of it and protect our consumers and drive those illegal shops out of business and support legal businesses here in New York. So I'm Christopher Smith, giving you the New York report for Weed Talk News.
With many new legal states still working on opening their adult use market, Nevada continues to nurture one of the most popular destinations that is cannabis friendly. Social clubs are opening up in and around the Strip, and there's some excitement that Nevada may be the best model for other states who are still struggling to figure out how to do it. Here's Tina Tasaka with the latest in her Nevada Cannabis report.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada Report for Weed Talk News. The Nevada Supreme Court heard oral arguments this week in a case that could change cannabis's classification as a controlled substance. The Nevada Board of Pharmacy classification of cannabis as a Schedule I drug means it officially has no medical use. Back in 2022, Clark County District Judge Joe Hardy ruled that the state's designation was unconstitutional because Nevada voters legalized medicinal marijuana in 2000 before approving recreational marijuana in 2016. The American Civil Liberties Union of Nevada, which initially brought the case forward, also argues that the Pharmacy Board can't regulate marijuana because lawmakers gave that authority to the Cannabis Control Board. Even if Nevada reclassifies the drug, it will remain a Schedule I controlled substance under federal law. Deep Roots is selling the Reno dispensary for $3.5 million. C21 Investments, Incorporated, announced on March 15th that its wholly owned Nevada subsidiary, Silver State Relief, LLC, is purchasing the Deep Roots Harvest Dispensary in southern Reno. C21 Investments owns Silver State Relief and Silver State Cultivation in Nevada, and in Oregon, the brands Phantom Farms, Hood Oil, and Eco Firma Farms. The purchase price is $3.5 million, which consists of a cash payment of $100,000 as a deposit and the final cash payment of $3.4 million at the closing. Are the cannabis lounges in Las Vegas finally on a roll? 2 more lounges were approved at the March 21st Cannabis Compliance Board meeting. The Standard Lounge will be located near Allegiant Stadium and plans to have a rooftop lounge area for its guests. Music, comedy, immersive experiences will be the lounge vibe. They will also have VIP rooms and special events. The Shanghai Lounge has an Asian and old school theme. The lounge plans to find a space near Chinatown. The theme's purpose is to expose customers to art, and the lounge operator is bringing a concept called Canna Art. No opening dates have been provided at this time. In last week's report, I gave a roundup of all the 420 parties in the 702. If that is not quite your style, there'll be another kind of party that may be your vibe. Try out the 420 Divorce Party Package created by the one and only Maxine Fensum with the Las Vegas Cannabis Weddings. The divorce party experience is 2.5 hours of high vibes, including a guided dispensary visit. Now that sounds more like Sin City. And that's the 702. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies for Weed Talk News.
Every Sunday live at 3 Eastern Time on the Cannabis Legalization News YouTube page, you will find our man in Illinois, Thomas Howard's live show with Miggy 420. This week, they celebrate their 1-year anniversary of launch, and we congratulate them on that. Way to go. Here's a segment of the show from Sunday.
That is our second story regarding Schumer and key House lawmakers. They're discussing merging the marijuana banking bill, the safe banking, with the cryptocurrency reform that's coming out of Politico and basically everywhere. And so House Financial Services Chair and Ranking Member, Representative Maxine Waters, they have met with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to talk about their stablecoin legislation. And they think that that is where they should maybe add safe banking, because if they're going to pass regulation on cryptocurrency, maybe we can get the banking regulation for cannabis taken care of as well.
Do you think, though, I mean, this safe banking should be a no-brainer, right? Like, it should be like the next step towards the rescheduling of what's going to be coming next, right? The overall infrastructure. This will help give you that ability to get loans or file it, what was it, 280E, right? These are all financial fiduciary things that you have to do if you're running a real business, right? Like, I think about, dude, how we're going through this process. We are licensed owners, right? We
are waiting for a license that we purportedly won, and so we did not get that email last week. If you're watching this and you're in Chicago and you did, awesome. Don't forget to give your information to the state of Illinois by Wednesday, April 17th. But I hope that we are in wave number 2, the downstate wave. We will find out.
And finally, as we mentioned at the top of the show, this is the week of 420. We mentioned it in the middle too. Okay, many in the industry still consider this day, April 20th, to be a real high holy day, or at least an unofficial holiday. Well, this year it lands on a Saturday, and many are predicting record sales. Of course, that depends on the stage of development of the market in your state. Is it the first one, or is it just another day like it is in more mature markets? Well, this is the first time since the pandemic that April 20th is on a Saturday. And since the busiest day of the week in cannabis is Fridays, retailers are eyeing 3 days of increased sales. The trick in retail is to run promotional events that are geared to drive traffic, right? Not limit profit margins, which are already tight. And there are 2 units of measurement: average order value and average order profit. Well, both have declined since their high in 2021. Last year, customer and transactions were up, but those average units declined by $10 since 2021. And the average over profit declined by $4.25 or 14.25%. But one thing you can almost certainly count on, no matter where you shop or in what state, you will be getting some discounts. Last year, that discount was just over 32%, and this year, economists are predicting greater discounts this year than last. So, I mean, I just picked up a $2 joint today, so I think they're already celebrating. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. That's Weed Talk News for this week. I'm Alaina Pinto. Have a safe and smart holiday. We'll see you next time.
We're working on helping startups and companies that need relatively small amounts of money, meaning $500,000 or less. And what we're doing is we've got a funding source that's not basing it on your business plan, on your acumen, it's not a venture, it's debt, but it's based on a credit score and 2 years of tax returns with income. And with that, we can get you money.